I will defeat the Powerpuff Girls, or my name isn't Mojo Projo.
Mendicant Core Guidelight versus Dehada, Ertai, and Volo. 2-lander. Maybe get into a 3rd land by turn 3. Winged Boots equipped. We can start getting the speed up. Let's try that. I don't like the fact that we don't have a 3rd land or any ramp, but we can keep our fingers crossed. In fact, we've got 2 tap lands, don't we? So we do actually need to draw into a 3rd land. Preferably something with a basic type. Okay, that's great. We get into Polluted Delta, so let's just make that a tap land, and it will have the other lands come into play untapped, meaning that we can try and curve out nicely. Meticulous Archive lets us surveil a plains on top, so we've got our 4 lands for the Smothering Tithe now, as well as one with the machine, although we don't have any high mana artifacts at the moment for one with the machine. Everyone just tapping out and passing through, so we will attempt to keep our commander in play here, and that means that we get the 1st level on the speed and hopefully can swing in next turn to deal some damage. Ertai holding up mana, I don't like the look of. Luckily we've got the Fierce Guardianship available to us, so I'll hold up priority for as long as I need to hold that thing up. Phyrexian Arena with some new artwork. Alright, there's an Ancient Tomb as well, so we could just go for Smothering Tithe here. Would we rather get Tithe down, or would we rather get our speed up? I think we're fine to swing in, see what happens. Go into the right. We do have 1 power on our commander, of course. So we managed to land it. The trigger goes on the stack. We go to level 2. And it could be that our opponent goes for some kind of spot removal onto our commander, so I wish that we had the Winged Boots equipped, but it's hard to argue against a turn 3 Smothering Tithe when our opponents aren't exactly accelerating ahead on mana, so I will do that. Had a lot of lands on top of the library. Priority still being held up by Ertai. Doesn't have his commander online either. Yeah, so he was holding up a counter spell. I do want this to come down, so I'll counter the counter. If we can keep Smothering Tithe in play for any length of time, we're actually not going to be too far away from playing the Portal to Phyrexia after all. And getting 2 of those in play would be good. Garrick's Uprising is card draw into our Smothering Tithe, so see if the Ertai player can get into some of his rare enchantment removal. Holding up priority again, so Ertai is available. Phyrexian Arena drawing a card, which means we make 2 treasure. The more treasure we make, of course, the more we are buffing our commander, so I have to try and attack him with this before we crack any treasure for mana. Not playing the commander, we see Anger instead for the Mardu player. Have to imagine that Ertai is just holding up interaction for us. Let's see. Go for the Deserted Beach, and then we can play Psymaster Thopterist, give him something else to worry about, and if he counters that, then so be it. Yep, goes for the counter onto the Psy, as I imagined he would, but at least not getting down his commander, and he is going through his interaction. So all he's really doing is encouraging us to swing in over there. Let's get down the boots. I won't equip them until we've hit, because I don't want to crack a token in order to do it. You don't know when 1 or 2 points of commander damage is going to make a difference. So we do get up to level 3 after all. Just have to try and dodge edict effects that are quite prevalent on Magic Online. They have become prevalent on Magic Online in recent months. Make sure to equip the Winged Boots, so this is now a 5/3 with Ward 4 and Flying. Might be worth getting down Portal to Phyrexia just to go for one with the machine and draw a bunch of cards. You'd obviously rather wrap up creatures in this though. We could reanimate our Psy quite quickly with it as well. We're going to need 13 mana with Portal to Phyrexia and the one with the machine, which we might have during the next turn cycle. Explosive Vegetation. Alright, we're having the Dimir player pay into our Smothering Tithe, so I might just want to hold up 3 mana for another 3 mana counter spell. Anointed Procession doubles up the tokens, so looking to get multiple treasure from Dehada, I imagine. So we're currently on 8 power with the Mendicant. A good draw here, please. Alright, that's not terrible actually. Unidentified hover ship. The problem is I'm not going to play it here because we don't really have any decent targets. Drop the planes. And let's just swing straight through and see if our opponent does something. He's going to have to worry about commander damage sooner than later. And as soon as the control player's down, I'm hoping that we'll have a much more easy run of it, because I have no doubt that he's just holding up counter magic for us here. We do, however, get up to max speed, so now whenever we play an artifact, we can pay 1 and copy it. So that way we can now go for 10 mana into Portal to Phyrexia. Even if they do counter it, we get a copy at least. Maybe want to exile the Anger with this to not give Dihada haste, although we could reanimate the Anger to keep them off the haste as well. Yeah, I think I will go for Portal just so that we can try and refill our hand next turn and reanimate Sai. Turns out keeping Smothering Tithe in play was a good move. Put the trigger on the stack with Mendicant, so we decide if we want to pay the 1 or not, and we do of course say yes. Ertai deciding on what to do here. Be funny if he had a mana drain. Yep, goes for countering a spell with another 3 mana counter spell before he's even seen if we are going to copy with the Portal or not. It's noteworthy that with the token copies that you make of a permanent, you do copy the CMC of the spell as well. So with this, we should still draw 9 cards to a token copy. But our opponent was quite predictable, thankfully. The Mardu player is just timing out on us for some reason. I don't know. I mean, you want Anger in the bin, so I don't see that Portal does too much to you at the moment. But we still get to say yes to our commander, even with the original Portal countered, and that comes into play. Probably the least impactful Portal to Phyrexia that anyone's ever seen, but hopefully can refill our hand next turn. We could always see mass artifact destruction from the green player, Bane of Progress or something like that. Tatyova Benthic Druid hasn't made a land yet, I don't think. So makes a land, it's not a fetch at least. Draws and gains a life, which gains us another treasure token with the tithe, but decides to pay the tax by the looks of it. Now, can Ertai deal with our commander? Has Ward 4 on it, so if they make a land and have a 2 mana destruction spell, then they could deal with it, but they'll have to tap out into that. Relic Bane. Enchanting an artifact, it has at the beginning of your upkeep lose 2 life. Couldn't care less about that if we're going to take our opponent out next turn anyway. Need to hope that Dihada doesn't interfere with our commander at all. A Cordial Vampire. Whenever this or another creature dies, put a plus counter on each vampire. And Dihada comes into play after that and reveals the top 4 cards, so we'll see how many treasure he decides to make here. He does have haste, don't forget, thanks to the Anger. Thankfully decides to discard that Vandal Blast, that's fine by me. Gets rid of a couple of lands as well, including Tomb of Yawgmoth, but in doing so makes 3 double up to 6 treasure tokens, 7 cards in hand. He did reveal Olivia, mobilised for war, so Vampire Tribal Dihada is interesting. Throws himself out a Bloodline Keeper with haste. 1/1 swings in at us, so I think we've got some decent targets for our unidentified hover ship now. I think it's going to have to be this thing before it makes too many tokens, and the Tatyova. But first of all, we'll take out Ertai if we can. I don't see what he can do with our Ward 4, to be honest. So we lose 2 life to the boots. Portal to Phyrexia. Can go after the Sai. And next turn, hopefully, we'll be reanimating the Anger to take haste away from our opponent. But I want to be making some Thopter tokens if I can. Now Ertai is thinking about something, not sure if he can counter a triggered ability. Seems as though Ertai is going to start timing out, which he really shouldn't do. He should force us to take him out because it swallows up one of our attack phases, but I'm not playing around the fact that players just want to serially quit on Magic Online. I will take my attack in somewhere else. Okay, so eventually timing out and screwing his other opponents, who are now going to take an extra hit from some big commander damage when they didn't necessarily have to this turn. Still have Winged Boots on the stack, so we still go down to 30. Sai is successfully reanimated. See what we draw into. That is a talisman for us, so for 3 mana, we can make 2 mana, so effectively only costing 1 to accelerate our board. So let's do that. Sai triggers on cast, so yeah, the copy won't work here with Sai, but we get a Thopter regardless. It was the edicts that I was mainly worried about, with Mendicant Core just sat there on its own for so long. But there we go, we get a couple of talisman. And now let's go for the unidentified hover ship. And I will make a copy of that as well. If it's only going to be 1 mana, we might as well make a Thopter. Say yes. And now we can exile the 2 threats on the board, which is the Flying Vamp. Okay, didn't tap it on the way out, so passing priority too quickly, I think. Get rid of Tatyova as well. And then I might see if we can draw ourselves into a Lightning Greaves, so that we can try and get some damage through to the Dehada. It does mean that we're debuffing our commander, but I don't think it's going to be enough to take our opponents off commander damage next turn. Well, it might be actually, but we'll do this anyway. Alright, we've got a land to make for the turn now. We can hold up Dispatch. Researcher's Thief. We've only got 1 artifact creature that we're going to land damage with. Let's just go Arid Mesa. And we're still dealing 12 points of commander damage. So I will take that in at the Dehada player, because, yeah, Dehada can do crazy stuff. Ignoring the Planeswalker, unfortunately. But if we got into the Lightning Greaves there, we could have played it and equipped it onto this, because the Thopters can crew this thing quite easily. Let's get down the Artificer's Assistant, actually, so that we can maybe swing in with that next turn, just in case it's relevant. That means we end the turn with 7 cards in hand as well, so we don't have to discard. Alright, so Dehada just deciding to scoop there. Yeah, discarding that Vandal Blast was a curious decision, but fine by me. Can Volo wipe the board? We haven't seen the commander yet. Volo into play for the first time. Now this operates on cast, so we can't respond with a Dispatch in order to keep them from getting a token copy of something. And they hold on to priority as soon as the permanent hits play, so they've got a chance to go for an Abominable Tree Folk, which will enter as a 6/6, draw some cards and trigger our Smothering Tithe. Tap a target creature an opponent controls and it freezes it. Okay, not really too worried about that. I will go for Dispatch now though. So let's crack that for a Tundra. And we've definitely got Metalcraft, so we can exile for 1 mana. Now our opponent has to spend 6 of his mana next turn, getting Volo down again. He will end the turn with 6 cards in hand at least. Tries to target our Mendicant Core, so triggers the ward and wastes the trigger on that one. These actually counter each other. Snow permanents, of course, so each an 8/8 trample. And we actually don't have anything to reanimate with our Portal to Phyrexia anymore, but I think it was well worth it to draw all those cards, getting it in. Obviously gave us some tokens with the Sidemaster Thopterist as well, which is tapped down and frozen. Not really too worried about that, although it does have a high toughness. That might be what he's thinking about. So now, with the Research Thief, we do have Flash. We're not going to get our opponent on commander damage next turn anyway, so it might be worth just doing that here. So we'll scry with the Artificer's Assistant, make a Sidemaster Thopterist token. Cannot copy this non-legendary creature, unfortunately. We would be getting double the card draw, but we don't quite have enough tokens. Enough treasure tokens, that is. Definitely scry a land onto the bottom, especially Myriad Landscape. And making the Thopter at instant speed gave us another creature to be able to hit with the Research Thief as well. So let's... I don't think it particularly matters if we animate these instead of just hitting with the Thopters. Maybe I could go for Machine God's Effigy and copy the Research Thief. So let's get that thing down. Scry again. And we can of course copy the Effigy with our commander, which I think we will do. The mana pays for itself when we get the copy. So can't copy this, unfortunately. The toughness is too high. But we can go for Research Thief. Scry a Mana Vault. I think we've got enough mana. Although, if we're going to draw a bunch of cards anyway, we might as well have lots of additional mana. We could even play it for free with Joyra's Familiar. So have that come into play as a copy. So we've got 3 Research Thieves in play now. I think that means we're safe to swing in. We've got 14 commander damage on our opponent. Let's swing in with everything. And this will knock our opponent down to half of his life total. And we're hitting with 5 artifact creatures. So we'll draw 15 cards here, I think. That looks around about 15. Well, there we draw into Cyclonic Rift, which is going to be a bit of a no-brainer. We've got the new Gearhulk, Riptide Gearhulk as well. A means of indestructible with Darksteel Forge. Let's go for the Mana Vault. And that is more scry, it's more thopters. We'll make a copy of Mana Vault for just 1 mana. So that is 6 mana for the price of 2. Scry Solemn Simulacrum onto the bottom should be fine. Tap down both of the Mana Vaults in order to make a Thran Dynamo. 2 Thran Dynamos for 5 mana. And again we get the same triggers, a Thopter and a Scry. Scryer Plains onto the bottom. Now it's noteworthy, I should go for Cyclonic Rift here. I don't want to be as boring as that. If our opponent manages to buff these up and get us somehow, then, well, we'll just say that that was a fun way to lose. Let's play Foundry Inspector, and that'll be 4 mana to make our artifacts cost 2 less, because we'll get the copies. I'm just trying to make the fun plays here to do something a little bit unique whilst our opponent is graciously playing things out. Scry with the bird, again putting a land on the bottom. Now we can go for Joyous Familiar for 2 mana and 1 to copy. Artificer's Assistant, clearing a lot of lands off the top. So now we've got Riptide Gearhulk, and getting 2 copies of that into play is probably going to be fun. In fact, let's go for the Arcane Signet first, just for 4 mana. So comes in for free and we pay 1 to copy it. Our artifacts aren't indestructible either. I'm not going to be able to get down the Darksteel Forge, I don't think. Thought Monitor's fine to keep on top. How much is Darksteel Forge anyway? It's still 5 mana, so let's go for a bit more of a fun play with the new Riptide Gearhulk. That isn't a legendary, so we will pay into that. We've only got 1 mana left, so I'll probably just make, I don't know, a couple of Lightning Greaves or something. Anyway, when that enters, we'll tuck the Abominable Treefolk. The token enters, we tuck the token as well. And yeah, let's just go for a free Lightning Greaves copied. Alright, and with that our opponent decides to leave it, so didn't fancy his odds of drawing into a board wipe there. All we do next turn is turn everything in sideways. Our commander, currently a 32-3. Not buffing up the toughness on that, but if you can make it unblockable, it doesn't matter. So yeah, pretty damn good showing for Mendicant Core. I'm not sure how much excitement there is for this commander, but being able to copy artifacts for only 1 mana is something that I had a feeling would be broken, and if you have games like this on the regular, then apparently it can be. So hopefully you all enjoyed this gameplay. Massive thank you to the patrons for their financial support of the channel. I'm tribalkai. Thank you for watching.